and you're welcome along to another edition of Tipp Cast. Myself, Shane Ruffley of Nina Garden, joined once again by Noel Dundon to look back over us. We haven't had a show for a couple of weeks, so looking back over a busy period, and I suppose building up to next Sunday and the rivalry renewal with Kilkenny back in Nolan Park. And no, we haven't done a show since the Cork game, but there's definitely a sense that look, we're probably going in the right direction, small steps at a time. But Kilkenny, maybe they're not the force of old. I still think they're the yardstick for every other team, like in terms of effort and application. Like if you can stand up to that, you're going in the right direction.
Absolutely, Shane, and definitely down in Nolan Park as well. Like we all know what a cauldron Nolan Park is at the best of times. Even when you're not playing Kilkenny, if there's any other team down there that you're playing, it can be a real cauldron. But particularly when you are playing Kilkenny, and particularly at senior level, I think our victories down there have been few and far between, and a lot of lads have found that they were engaged maybe against other standards until they came to play in Nolan Park. And when you go down there to play in Kilkenny, it's a different ball game entirely. And you will know that if you can stand up to the rigours of the hurling fair in Nolan Park against Kilkenny, that you'll be fairly okay for championship after that.
It still remains there. I think I'd nearly forgotten we actually won 2 years ago down there in the league. Prior to that, I think you have to go back to 2008 and a league semi-final, and we suffered a lot of crushing defeats there in the meantime. And I think it's really set up nicely now, because I think off the back of Kilkenny's loss to Cork, like they're under pressure this weekend, because if they lose, potentially they're looking at maybe having to beat Limerick not to be relegated the following week in their rescheduled game. So and we've sort of seen in this National League so far, every team that kind of comes into a round desperately needing a win seem to have got it. Like Tipp were probably under the most pressure in round one and got the win. Galway needed to bounce back in round two. They got the win. You saw Clare last weekend were under pressure to get the win against Limerick, got it. So you'd have to think Kilkenny, like they're going to be gunning for this, and if any of our lads are not fully switched on now, it could be a tough day at the office.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose no matter what stage the league was going to be at when you meet Kilkenny, you have to be ready for it anyway. Whether it's the first round of the league or the last round, which this was supposed to have been. This was to have been the last round of the league from a Kilkenny point of view, but because of the rescheduling that day, as you say, they have to that game later on. But that'll make no difference to Kilkenny when they're preparing for Sunday in front of their own people. They're going to be going like hell for it, as you would expect, and as you would expect Tipperary to as well. We've been going well in the league, and this is another opportunity now to maybe lay down a marker. I think we've probably been saying in a lot of cases with all these league games, when you go up to Galway, the first round of the championship or first round of the league away in Salt Hill, and then you have Cork visiting Semper Stadium, and we've been saying for a lot of time that it's about the performance, of what kind of a performance you can produce. I think it's probably true of next Sunday as well. The result obviously is important, but what's probably more important is that we can continue producing the kind of performances that we have produced, because you'd have produced them against top teams, then a couple of them in the league, and that'll stand you good stead for the championship. But we always expect Kilkenny to be very, very tough down there. We always expect the atmosphere to be at boiling point, because their supporters will be mad to get one over on Tipp, and maybe they might see an opportunity to knock Tipp down a peg or two, having had a good league so far. So all of that, when you throw all that into the mix, I think we could be in for a right match down there. As you said, there have been upsets in a lot of the rounds. Maybe upsets even isn't the right word to use, but there have been sort of surprises maybe at how teams have come out fighting.
They're revving themselves up. Like, it's maybe certain games are more important than others. Like in terms of, like Liam Cahill would have said that the Cork game was probably one that had circled on the calendar just because of what happened last year, and we probably saw that in the performance that night. Like there was real real aggression and real fortitude that they weren't going to lose that night.
Yeah, and I mean, the last time we were down in Kilkenny, in Nolan Park, we won that All-Ireland minor final. Under all of the circumstances that were there, extra time, being down to a main, beating Kilkenny in their own home patch, and I'm sure that'll probably be at the backs of the minds of maybe not the players, but certainly the supporters, that we don't want this Tipp crowd coming over the border and betting us a second time in our home patch. So that all feeds into the whole mix. Like I was going to say, there, I was looking at the Sunday game. At the league roundup there at the weekend, and I can't remember which of the commentators said that they thought that Galway could well be in trouble after the first round against Tipperary. Look at the way they've turned it around. Who would have really seen Wexford getting the result that they got, Clare last weekend against Limerick? So there's always going to be unexpected results, if you want to call it that. Would it be an unexpected result if Tip were to go down and beat Kilkenny on Sunday? Probably not. Would it be an unexpected result if Kilkenny were to beat Tipperary on Sunday? Probably not either.
Definitely not. And I suppose from a Tipperary point of view, we were, I suppose, from back in, I suppose, when Liam did his interview on Tip FM before Christmas, he had earmarked this game against Kilkenny and hoping by that stage he would have a fair idea of what his best team might be. And you'd have to think he's kept to his word. You're looking at, I think we have 7 players that have started all 4 games so far. Throw in Ronan Maher, who was rested against Wexford. He probably would have started that if they needed it as 8. Garrod O'Connor was rested that there. That's 9. There's definitely an element of bedding that team down, getting that confident in their places, and I suppose I had it in my piece this week. We'll have a greater idea of where we stand with the team after Sunday. Because you think after a 2-week break, all the colleges distractions are over now, and injury profile seems to be pretty good. That maybe of the 15 that are selected this weekend, you'd probably be thinking maybe anything up to 12 or 13 of them are probably in pole position to start on Easter Sunday against Limerick in the championship.
Yeah, 12 was the figure I had in my head, Shane. As you were talking, I was thinking roughly 12, barring injuries, of course, or whatever, But I would think probably around 12, and that there are 3 places that are maybe floating there with maybe possibly 8 players looking for those 3 positions. And depending on what kind of a way they decide to set up against Limerick and all that, who might come in or out of there. I think it's a very good place to be in, certainly from a supporter's point of view. They would readily acknowledge that Liam and the management team have tried a lot of players, have given players plenty of opportunity to show what they can do. They've been adventurous, and yet they've been fairly structured as well in what they've been doing. And I think it probably comes back to the whole point of, that maybe what we haven't had over the last number of years was some kind of a comfort in the style of play that we're playing. And that we're adopting. We seem to have that comfort now. We're relatively comfortable with it, and the 12 players that probably you and I are both thinking of at the minute are to the forefront in that. They're very comfortable in what they're doing. They know what every man beside each other has to do, what their role is, and they can identify fairly quickly if somebody's under pressure or if they're not doing that role. And in that regard too, then we have a fairly strong bench. The bench is pretty strong. We still haven't seen a few of maybe some of the more established players who are still there to come back into it, and will bring a lot of experience into the whole thing as well. But I would imagine that looking to Sunday's game, the management team will be more inclined to look at some of the newer guys, throw them in and see what they can do, because what you see on Sunday is going to be very close to championship type tempo and intensity.
Yeah, potentially it's our second last competitive game if Tip don't get to a league final. So their lads are running out of opportunities. We might just go line by line and looking at goalkeeper first. I suppose Liam Cahill did say a couple of weeks ago that the plan was to give Reece Shelley and Barry Hogan 2 games each. Now they've done that. Thought Reece did pretty well the first 2 games. I thought Barry or Hogan probably in against Cork probably his best game in a Tipperary jersey. So he really threw down the gauntlet. I suppose we don't know with Reece's back injury that he got in the challenge match against Galway how, like, if Reece is fit to play this week and starts, you're going to be saying he's definitely going to be starting. I suppose it'll all depend. Like, if I suppose we'll know who's on the bench. Like, I suppose there will be a little grey area if maybe Reece is not available to play. Maybe Owen Horgan is on the bench again. But you'd have to think whoever gets to start this weekend will be in pole position.
You probably would, and with the last game to come and possibly a league final to come, like, you're not going to start tinkering with your team at that stage. Then, like, whoever you have in the goals on Sunday is probably going to hold that position, barring some injury or some major disruption of some kind. It's hard to know who they will go with. To my mind, I think Barry Hogan is probably edging it a bit. I think that the game against Cork would have done Barry a lot of good in the management's eyes. He came off the line a couple of times, very, very strong off the line, prevented a couple of goal opportunities for Cork. And his distribution is very good as well. It's in that, distribution is one of Reece Shelley's really, really strong points. He's very, very good to ping that ball and to find players in that. So I think we're in a very, very good position as far as goalkeeper is concerned to have 2 top class keepers there. But I probably would say that Barry probably has the edge right at this minute.
Yeah, I would have been thinking maybe that Reece probably was shading it up to the Cork game, but definitely Barry. It was a strong performance that night, puck outs and shots up, and as his Bravage come off the line. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one, like in terms of whether Reece is fit to play and whether I suppose we maybe have to worry about maybe have to go to another week to know who's definitely number one. I suppose you're looking at the full back line. It's nearly a done deal now. Michael Breen, Owen Connolly, and Robert Doyle, you think, didn't start against Galway, came on at half time. Michael Corcoran got a bit of a small niggle, and he's been very, very good since. I thought against Cork, he had a tough early on with Jack O'Connor, but he really stuck to the task brilliantly well, got in a couple of hooks in the second half, and I just thought that they really want this guy to work out, like, and I just think he's that bit of steely determination. He's tough, he's hardy. I thought that last play in the injury time against Cork, he made a great interception and he shook off up the field in a solo run and he won a free. And I just thought he definitely has the feeling of a crowd favourite.
Yeah, it was kind of Barrett-esque, wasn't it? The way he came out with that ball at the end there. Well, I mean, he's probably the ultimate case of the guy who grabbed his opportunity with both hands when he came on in that game, and really nailed down a position very, very quickly. The lads in West Tipperary will tell you that this has been coming for a while, that he's a very, very capable hurler. We're seeing that now, and we're seeing him in good company. He seems to thrive in that good company, though, Shane. And I suppose that's a point that maybe a lot of people don't appreciate, that you can have hurlers who they're playing in their club scene and they're being played in different positions, key positions. But in fact, when it comes down to it, you can actually slot in very, very easily, not easily, but very, very comfortably in an inter-county setup. That has happened with a lot of players back down through the years, and I think you'd have to give credit to the tip selectors for recognising that.
But he is but he is an out-and-out backman. Like, that's where he played his underage hurling. I think people just think he played for Clonalty in the forwards, but he's sort of played up there out of necessity. They wanted a bit of physicality, a bit of a ball winner up there. And if you go through his scoring stats for Clonalty, they're not hectic, and there's sometimes there his finishing is not great, but as in terms of an out-and-out backman, he knows what to do.
Exactly, he does. He's a great defender. He's able to get that hurley in and just knock a ball away. But what he loves doing is bursting out in front and taking that ball in front
Mm,
of the forward if he can. And I suppose as well, to be fair, the fact that our backline has been pretty settled. We haven't had
mm,
a whole lot of change throughout the league games, and that has probably helped too because he has been allowed to get comfortable there beside Connolly at fullback and Mikey Breen in the other corner.
mm,
Ronan has been at centre in front of him and doing a lot of sweeping. Then you've got Brian O'Mara, and right last week our last outing we had Joe Caesar there.
mm.
Sam Farrell was there in the Galway game. So there's Seamus Kennedy has been there. With a few people in and out there, but by and large it's pretty settled backline. I think that definitely benefits a new guy coming in like Robert Dyle.
Yeah, I suppose moving to the half back line, I suppose Ronan at 6 is nailed down. I thought he had a tremendous game against Cork. He really emptied himself. He was running on fumes towards the end. I think our half back positions I still think they're up in the air. I know I think they're very high in Sam Farrell, but we haven't seen Sam since the Galway match because of injury. So hopefully, maybe if he's ready to go, I think he'll come back in. Just can you take the risk then with playing Sam and Joe Caesar either side of it, two inexperienced sides? You probably can't. I still, and I still, I'm still think they're not quite sure about Brian O'Mara because like they've taken him off in a couple of games now, and you think at this stage of his career, like he has all the talent, but sometimes is he given that is he driving through that ball like in terms of style? I think it's a big game for Brian O'Mara at the weekend because like people are assuming he'll be there for championship, but I'm not. I wouldn't be so nailed down that that's going to be the case. I think he needs a big game either this weekend or against Clare.
Yeah, like as you say, he's been there for a couple of seasons now, and
Yeah,
injuries have interrupted him slightly at different times, and illness as well.
yeah.
So I think he probably will start on Sunday against
Mm,
Kilkenny, and he'd be given his opportunity there, to see how he's shaping up at this stage. And then the other halfback, will it be Sam O'Farrell? Will it be Seamus Kennedy? Ronan, as you say, is a shoe in at centre back. So there's a lot of certainty in, we're kind of saying there that, four of our six are nailed down
mm.
almost, and then we've been naming pretty good settled players there for the other two positions as well. Like, so it's a good place to be in. But like one of the things that we're seeing, I suppose, right now, Shane, is that particularly with Seamus Kennedy, we didn't really know for a long time, was Seamus Kennedy going to be a half back, a
Mm,
midfield, or a half forward in different teams. But this time round, it seems definite that if he's going to be playing, it'll be at half back, really.
mm.
And that probably is no harm for Seamus himself as well, because when you're being fired up and back across the field, it can be a little bit unsettling. He has always done a job for Tipp, no matter where he lines out. And I've no doubt if he's picked again on Sunday, he will do so.
Yeah,
Um,
I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe there could be a game, maybe particularly like Limerick, where maybe he could go back to wing forward and sort of play like the way Limerick have. They play Dan Morrissey, Garrod Hegarty. Tip could have Alan Tynan on one side and Seamus on the other, and filtering up and back. So it could be a horses for courses thing. He could go into the middle of the field as well. Like you're looking at like Craig Morgan and Willie Connors, maybe have done little wrong. Okay, maybe the Limerick game they were a little quiet, but I thought they bounced back pretty well, particularly against Cork, particularly Craig. Like I just think he just brings that bit of extra grit and determination in there that sort of a bit of spikiness too. And like we saw that if he gets a bit of space and can take off on a solo run, he's hard to pin back. So you're probably looking at Willie and Craig again for Sunday, maybe, unless they feel they want to give Seamus Kennedy some minutes.
yeah, I would say you're looking at the two lads in the middle of the field for Sunday, and it's a big game for them as well, because that's one area that Kilkenny have been particularly competitive in the middle of the field there. I think Craig has been little bit of a revelation for us at midfield. He brings a lot to the team. He has natural defensive qualities anyway, but he has great mobility and gets up the field fairly quickly, and is well able to take a score. And that's a plus. Like when you see the amount of scores that have been taken by other teams in the championship off their half backline in midfield, it's great to have another guy out there who can do that for Tipp as well. Willie gets into a lot of shooting positions as well. One of the games there, a lot of his efforts were going awry, but look, that can happen too in any game. Your shoot can be just off and different things. I think Willie Connors has been a real plus. He's really nailed down that midfield position there. He's a workhorse. He tolerates no messing. He's a tough boy, and he's well able to mix it. And that's probably what we need right there in the middle.
Yeah, and they're able to feed off. I suppose if you're going with long puckouts, like it's at Garrod O'Connor and Alan Tyne, and like they stood in under the high ball very well against Cork, and you have to think that Garrod looks like a guy that's really has the bit between his teeth this year. And you look on the inside line, Darren McCarthy, probably very solid. Be interesting to see whether Jason Ford goes again. He got 3 points of play, but you think he's probably you still feel there's another bit to come from him too. Like I just say he could, in terms of his mobility. Shawnee Kennelly had I suppose after the Limerick game, probably no surprise, a small bit of a dip against Cork, but look, he'll bounce back from that. And of course, like Dylan Walsh again I thought he was very sharp coming against Cork, just frustrated maybe a couple of times he was blocked down, just didn't get enough of a half yard of space, but like his first touch, he really looks electric at the moment.
He does, and he finished the goal fairly well.
Yeah.
Put it down low under the goalkeeper who was advancing, and it would have been easy enough for that opportunity to have been spurned because the Cork goalie was out very, very fast. But no, he's a real asset, I think, for Tipp. Andrew Ormond the very same way. Had showed some really, really good form against Galway in the first round as well, and very, very pacey and gets a chance. When he plucks the ball out of the sky in that movement and he hits the ground, he's moving straight away, and that's a real threat. It's the last thing a backman wants is a guy like that who's going to do that to you. So I think we have a lot of options. You mentioned Jason Ford there. I think the Cork game was a game that Jason needed. He needed to find that bit of form again and to bring that bit of confidence back into his game. And he showed that against Cork. We all know what Jason can do. Like, it's just a matter of getting the confidence going. And I've no fear of Jason. I think he'll be there when it comes to championship time.
Yeah, like it's all about confidence. It's a confidence thing with Tipp. Like it's getting them to believe again, because we know they're all these players are good enough. And like there was the Tipp played Dublin and challenge match a couple of nights after the Cork game, and all accounts Noel and John McGrath showed up well. So it'll be interesting to see whether John maybe gets a start in this one, like, or even Noel, like just to build up that, I suppose, having that 20, 21, 22 players that they can really be confident about. But look, there's going to be injuries. Like you're looking at Tipperary are going to be in the championship playing two sets of games back to back. Like, so you're trying to you're going to have to maybe freshen the thing up for the week after as well.
You are, and Noel McGrath loves playing Kilkenny, and he gets a real kick out of playing Kilkenny. So maybe this is the game that they'll decide to try and get minutes into his legs, because like we've been saying all along, you have to give lads who are sitting out matches, you have to give them the opportunity to get competitive minutes into their legs before the first round of the championship. If you've any thoughts of using them at all in that championship game, you have to give them that opportunity, and that's where striking the balance between experimenting outright or going strong with your team. You go with your best 15, you go with your 15 maybe where you've got 10 or 12 guys who are going to be starting, and you're looking at 3 more guys who need to get minutes into their legs. So it's a real balancing act for the management team. I think they probably will do that. I think we'll see a couple of players who need to get matches, who need to get minutes featuring on Sunday. And I wouldn't argue with that. I think because when it comes down to championship time, you're going to need that 25, 26 players to, as you say, injuries are going to come in, fatigue will come in as well, and a lot of injuries arise as a result of fatigue, muscle injuries and that kind of thing. I know they've tailored their training to try and counteract that, having lost a couple of players at vital stages over the last couple of campaigns and that.
Yeah, and they'll be going all out there to win on Sunday. I think it'll be an important one. I just think psychologically for the players, if they're able to go down to Kilkenny and get a result, not just probably it will almost put Tipp into a league final, but just that extra bit of belief too. That was like there you can. It's winning games is one thing, but winning certain games was another, and getting a bit of a swagger and like you'll take more risks when the more confident you are. And I still think there's sort of a slight handbrake maybe on some of the things we're doing, but I think when that handbrake fully goes, like we will be hard to stop, will be hard to beat.
Yeah, well, if we go down next Sunday and beat Kilkenny, we'll be coming off the back of a stirring home victory against Cork, and a one that really had the crowd behind the team and had a lot of excitement in the stadium and all that. And then you go down and you beat Kilkenny in Nolan Park. But maybe let's not even talk about beating Kilkenny in Nolan Park. Let's talk about getting that performance that we mentioned earlier on, getting a really good performance in Nolan Park against Kilkenny. And I think then supporters will really have something tangible to reference when it comes to looking forward to championship time. Events in other counties too would perhaps suggest that it's going to be more difficult for them in the coming championship campaign as well, and maybe that elevates Tipp a little bit higher in our thoughts and in everybody else's thoughts as well in terms of getting out of Munster. So a lot has happened in the league, not just for Tipp but for other counties too. And I have to say, Shane, I'd be far more optimistic right now, even ahead of the Kilkenny game, than I would have been maybe at the start of the year. I think we're really moving in a good direction. I think a lot of good things are happening there, and there's a great vibe coming from the camp. And I've seen that in training. Like, the spirit is tremendous up there. Anytime you go up to Dr. Morris Park there, and the lights are on, and the boys are working really, really hard, really hard. Like, you can't fault what's going on. And I think that kind of work ethic and that spirit has been reflected in the performances.
Yeah, and I can feel it within the support. Like that, like we know the last couple of years the supporters either way, but they're no fools either. If they see Tipperary playing a certain way, they'll get behind them, and I think the Cork game and the manner that win, I think there'll be a big crowd from Tip will head down there on Sunday at 1:15 for that. And I suppose continuing the good vibe we have, like the Camogie team beat Kilkenny last weekend in the senior, the minors drew with them last gasp. And I suppose there's a bit of pressure in Kilkenny at the moment. I suppose it's their two colleges teams were knocked out of the series. St. Kieran's well beaten by Pres Athenry last weekend. You were up watching Thurles. I suppose it's something to look forward to now on St. Patrick's Day. Like the club finals are not there anymore, but I think the school finals are a worthy substitute, and a Thurles Athenry match should be something else. So we'll probably look ahead to it further next week. But just in terms of last weekend, Noel, you were at the game against Clare Galway. The game rate they were expected to win, probably a little bit rusty after the Harty Cup final, only waiting 4 weeks. But probably the ideal scenario going into the final, won, but not wouldn't be overly happy with how they got there.
Yeah, like the game that you're expected to win is the most dangerous game of all, isn't it? Because that you're the bookies' favourites, you're everybody's favourites. Everybody's telling you're going to win that game. Everybody's looking forward to St. Patrick's Day in Croke Park and all that. It's a dangerous one, and it always is very difficult to make sure that it doesn't get into the players' minds. Did it seep in? Probably some aspects of it did, I think. But I think probably the more telling aspect was the fact that there were 4 weeks without a competitive game from the day they won the Harty Cup. And there was a lot of celebration after the Harty Cup, a lot of emotional kind of stuff going on after that. And it took them a while to come back down to brass tacks and to get back to training and all that, which they did. But
yeah,
never
I
really
remember last year when Nina had to go into the quarter final. It was Munster's turn, and they said actually the best thing that happened to them was having a game more or less straight away. Like they would be more dangerous if they had the bye last year, and maybe things softening. Like they really bear a few days after the beat or Skull Reese, they were back focusing on the quarter final, and that they were really good that day. Like so, but they say if you're waiting a while for a game, it can take the edge off you.
Yeah, that's it. The momentum is kind of lost. All the good momentum built up from having won the Harty and all that was lost by the time they came to play Clare Galway up in Banner. But then saying that too, Shane, 19 wides in the game. The shooting was off, and if they'd pinted half of those, they'd have won it comfortably. First half in particular, I think they struck 13 in the first half, and some of them now were, they were poor enough now, to be honest about it. So they could have had a sizable gap by the halfway mark had they been a little bit more accurate. In saying that, I think the kind of common talk coming out of our thought process coming out of Banner was that Thurles have often lost really good games. This time they won a poor game, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing going into the final. It brings expectation down a little bit.
And they're probably going to go into it as underdogs, was all the chat will be. Athenry beat Kieran's to beat him, with Aaron Ireland only coming back from injury, and he'll have another 2 weeks training under his belt. But like that's a great spot for. Because I don't think we've seen Thurles really open up this year. Like it'd be a great place to do it. Like fully hit their straps.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I've been kind of saying for a while, like that if they can get to Croke Park at all, I could see a lot of the players there that it would really suit them. The space of Croke Park and brilliant sod and all that kind of thing. I'd be hoping it really suits them anyway. But I'm thinking of the likes of your Killian Minogue, your Robbie Ryan's, your Cahill, or free taker. His name is gone through me. Yeah, Cormac Fitzpatrick. That players like that will thrive on a good surface, and in Croke Park, you're not going to get a better surface than Croke Park this time of year, and the vast open spaces there. I think that it could really be of benefit to them. Now, on the other side of it, it's a difficult place to defend when you're defending there. It's a difficult thing, but fortunately, the defensive unit has been very, very strong all year long, with Evan Morris there at fullback, and Keith Lucknan sweeping at centre back, and that they've been quite strong all the time. So I think they'll be hoping that that will remain, that they'll keep the net intact again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll look ahead more to that game on next week. Just looking ahead to football, I suppose, since the last time we were on, Tipp were going well in the league. They had the 5 points out of 6, but they've hit a skid now. I suppose that disappointing loss to London, and then last weekend, I suppose a heavy loss to Limerick, 10 points for a finish. Injuries to Sean O'Connor and Luke Boland, and of course Stephen O'Brien out injured again. Like just, I suppose I wasn't at the Limerick game, but looking at the London game, and the vibe from the Limerick game is sort of the same, that we're short in athleticism at the moment, and we saw it against Limerick or against London. I know you were covering the game for us, that when opposition teams run at us, we just don't have. They're able to get through and off very, very easy, and I suppose that's. It is where we are. Like I suppose maybe the first set of results were probably and say a little false, but they took the pressure off. But look, with the back end of the league campaign and the teams that were to come were always going to be tough. And look, this is going to be a long rebuild. Like I think getting up out of Division 3 in year one was probably going to be a hard one. We probably needed everyone to stay fit and things go right. And look, I suppose the thing is, it's I suppose a little bit of a grounding about where we are at the moment.
Yeah, like the London one was the game, I mean, I think if we to win that game, we'd have really put ourselves in a strong position. It didn't happen. We got caught with that sucker punch at the very end. And, when you go down to play Limerick in Rathkeale, it's a tough blooming place to come out of. We found that in both hurling and football, that it's not a simple place to go to at all. And Limerick, Limerick have been a decent team. We've had our troubles with them over the years, and when you throw
They've
in
been ahead
the
of us the
fellas in,
last few years, so like form really held up. Like they've played Division 2
it
and
did.
Division 3 for a few years.
Yeah, it did hold up. It did, Shane. And like, probably at the start of the year, we might probably have been saying, or possibly been saying that if we were to achieve promotion, it would be a major, major step forward. I would think, we had a good start, and we've petered a little bit now.
Yeah, I'd say
I
it's
would
probably
think
gone.
promotion,
It's probably
it's
gone now.
gone, I would say. Yeah,
As Wexford, I
particularly,
think that next game against
yeah.
Wexford is going to be tough. But I think it'd be important maybe the last game at home to Wicklow and Clonmel, if they could win that and take some momentum into the championship. As like, look, and in fairness to Philly Ryan, like he's honest, and he's no bullshit about him. Like he's said, it's about preparing for the Tailteann Cup. Like even if Tip beat Waterford in the Munster Championship, will be rank outsiders against Clare in a Munster semi-final. Like we've got to be realistic about where we are. Like this is going to take a few years to rebuild.
Absolutely, it will, and I think they're going about it in the right way.
Yeah,
They've brought in a lot of younger guys with new blood and all that kind of thing. Of course, it takes time. I suppose, we often reference the hurling situation, Shane, where the management team will bring in a player, a young player, and it's going to take a while for them to get up to speed with S&C and all of that type of thing. We tend to forget that with the footballers, but it's
yeah.
it's every bit as true, and maybe even more so, because
And
of
it's actually shown. We saw it. We've seen it in the last few weeks. They're
yeah,
just physically not able to,
yeah, exactly.
out of possession, stop teams from getting through them. And with possession, we're not quick enough getting up the field.
Exactly, the transition isn't fast enough,
Yeah,
but that takes a while. And look at you play at club level, and you can manage that fine at club level,
yeah,
because the guys are good at what they do. But the step up to intercounty level is huge, and particularly in football, where you need so much athleticism, so much physicality. But the key is that we use this year as get whatever we can get out of this year, and then build on it.
yeah.
We're not going to throw the baby out of the bathwater just because things don't work out. There's still a couple of league games to go. We have an opportunity now to really have a good hammer at those games and see where they'll take us. And let's use those games to gain that experience and to try and create that little bit of momentum for the first round of the championship, as you say.
Yeah, and like it could well be that the under 20 championship is starting this Saturday. Tipper away to Limerick, and like this batch of under 20s that are coming, like they've been together with Niall Fitzgerald for the last 2 or 3 years. They're more or less the same group of lads. I think there's 16 or 17 lads still underage from last year's team. So like that's a lot of familiarity, a lot of and I know they were very, very good last year. Played 6 matches, won their Phase 1 championship, and played well against Cork at home. Probably missed a lot of chances, and I saw them against Kerry away, and I thought for a lot of that game they were very, very good. Like so, I think I wouldn't be surprised. Like I think they could be targeting. Okay, win your games in Phase 1, and I don't. I think they'll be targeting whoever it's Cork or Kerry. I think they'll fancy that. They could pick one of them off this year.
They could, and as you said, they've been a common team. They've a lot of work done, and you know we might be looking at them in terms of trying to fast track them into the senior setup as well, like, and see what they can do and bring in a bit of fresh blood, and the experience of winning games as well is a big thing. Like, and those guys have that. Yeah,
I
I'd
think the
agree with you
important
too. I
part,
think
I think the important part too is they want to play football for Tip. They're not just guys going in for the year just because they didn't get picked by the hurlers. Like these are
yeah,
guys that have been there for 4 or 5 years back to minor. Like they haven't drifted in and out. These boys want to play football for Tip.
yeah,
And I think that's
exactly. In
the
fact, there's
I think that's the way we've got to look at it. We've got to maybe prioritize the guys that are really keen on playing football for Tip. Maybe guys that are seeing it maybe as a bridging year until maybe the under 21s come calling next year, or the hurlers.
yeah, and you want guys who are going to be fully committed to the thing. And I think in fairness that at minor and under 20 level, we've been trying to do that. We've been trying to bring through players who will have hopefully have futures at senior level down the line. And like any club team or any minor team, you know yourself, Shane, you're always going to lose, out of the 15, you're going to lose 6, 7 players. But the crucial thing is that the guys that you do retain, that you look after them and that you make sure that all the things are put at their disposal that they're going to need. And I think in Tipperary we've been pretty good at doing that. In fairness, that the footballers get equal share with the hurlers too, like, so that they won't want for anything really,
Yeah, I look at it, they have a very, very good manager, Niall Fitzgerald, and I know the last couple of years, like, there would have been a bit of pressure on Niall maybe to take the senior job, but no, he's started taking it. He's playing the long game, and he knows, like, you got to build a group of players coming through, and like, he'll bide his time, and he'll have known all these guys, and I'm sure when the time comes, maybe for him to be senior manager, he'll know what's coming. Like, so it was, and like, hopefully they get off to win and start. Like, they have Limerick away, then home matches against Clare and Waterford. Maybe get to and then get through to the next round where Cork and Kerry, like, they're potentially 6 matches, like, and it's great for football development.
Yeah, it's great for them to be getting games. They've been training a long time, and in the old system, one defeat and you're gone. That was it, like a year over. But in this situation, at least they get those games. They get to wear the county jersey on 5 or 6 occasions. But more importantly, they get that experience of playing against other teams, of maybe similar standard, maybe better, maybe a little less so. And the ones that are better, you've got to compete with, and the ones that you expect to be beating, you still have to beat them. So there's a lot of kind of pressure which comes with playing with your county team.
Yeah, and just before we wrap up, just to mention that the ladies footballers, the seniors, had their second successive win against the beat Westmeath last weekend, so that takes the pressure off in terms of relegation from Division 2. And I suppose it's probably the notable result was the Tipp Miners beating Kerry in the first round of the ladies football championship last weekend by a late goal. So like, you showed that there's a lot of work going on at underage level at ladies football to bring through the next Aisling Maloney and those types. Like, that's a notable scalp for them. So plenty there to keep us going and to I suppose to reflect on, and we'll be back next week for another edition of Tipp Cast, hopefully reflecting on another strong performance by the Tipperary senior hurlers against Kilkenny in the National League. Thanks to Noel Dunnan. We'll be back next week. Bye for now.